I am very excited to bring you my next guest on the podcast. I did my very first real estate transaction with this agent. His name is Martin Carpenter, and he has been a realtor since 1985. He has a vast experience and has covered all things from commercial, residential, new construction, multifamilies. You name it, Martin's pretty much done it in the real estate business. He was my first transaction that I've ever did in real estate. He was kind, genuine, and very sympathetic to a newbie trying to learn how to really work a real estate transaction. We've been friends ever since, and it's been a lot of fun having somebody in the business with that much experience that I can just call up and pick his brain. And he's done a lot, from serving on the board of realtors to now training real estate agents. He's a great human being, and I had a great time talking to him. And I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. So here's my friend, Martin Carpenter. So we met because you were the first agent that I did a deal with.
I know.
Not only that, but also you were the nicest person ever throughout the whole transaction. We've been friends ever since.
Well, I appreciate that, and you did a great job with that from that standpoint. And
That was mostly Donna handholding.
Oh, well, Donna and I did have some conversations about you, Cory. So
Hopefully all good ones.
Well, there was a couple of times she said, well, I need to do this. I said, aren't you going to let Cory do it? How he's ever going to learn? You got to let him go.
Yeah, that's Donna. She's like she's my unofficial mom.
Yes, that's exactly right. She was being very, very protective. So
How long have you been in real estate for? I know you told me this answer, but
that's okay. I received my license in December of 1984, back when education was not required to obtain your license. So it was phased in prior to that. So when I could take my state exam, and then I had the first year I had to complete the salesperson qualifying course within the first year.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. What was the trigger? What made you say, you know what, I need to go into real estate?
There's a variety of reasons why. Ultimately, it was always something that did intrigue me. And then ultimately, I said, I want to do better. And I said, I think I can do this. There was that little bit of that passion that was kind of in me that I just said, I want to do better. And I would think this could be a interesting turn for me more than anything else. So.
Yeah, and you, it's interesting because we kind of have some parallels where I was in retail before I started real estate, and you were in grocery, right?
Yep, retail. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's still the same thing. I mean, grocery is a different beast when you talk retail.
Yeah, absolutely. But as I always say, sometimes, I was used to working crazy, awful hours. So what was real estate?
Yeah, right. That was going to be my next question. Was there any big common threads between going from grocery to real estate?
Really, it was just a matter of working hard and, quite frankly, being self-sufficient. I mean, I had no problem with that. But that's kind of in my own DNA, to be self-sufficient and strive to improve and want to do better. So that's... you could go back, Dr. Cory, and go back to my childhood and figure all that out. And
Dr. Cory, yeah, this is really like a therapy session. Really, what it is.
which is okay, Isn't that what conversation's about? It is sharing. It is getting to know somebody. It is, uncovering. And sometimes, I say, as we're even in the business or just getting to know somebody, you are peeling back that onion. You're finding out those layers of somebody. So
I like that term, peeling back that onion.
So,
because that is, everybody has different layers, and especially when you work with so many people, the volume of people that we work with on a yearly basis is pretty crazy. Especially if you are an agent like yourself who puts out X amount of dollars, a top producing agent. That's a lot of people you see.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's not just those people you see that year. It's all the relationships that you've built over the years that you are seeing when you're in the grocery store, you're seeing out and about in a restaurant and waving hi and helping them remember the relationship that you had with them when they were out selling their house or buying the house in the process and the journey.
Yeah, and that's the rewarding part about it, right? It's almost like I get to do something that makes me feel good, but also help them with the biggest purchase of their life.
Absolutely. I mean, having helped them through that process, you are intimately involved in their life. One of the hardest things is that you're involved with their life intensely for 10 weeks, 180 weeks. It can vary obviously. And then once it's done and over with, it's you're not abandoning them and they're not abandoning you, but they're ready to move on and be comfortable in their new place and start their new life or whatever the case may be. So sometimes that's always the saddest part, is that your relationship now changes.
Yeah.
By doing your job, your relationship changes.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because I was just going over that where I worked with this very nice person, Kathleen. She worked for me at PetSmart. And we got a contract accepted on a house way back in, I want to say it was May. Yeah, it was like May, June. And she was such a sweetheart. She waited 6 months because the seller had to find suitable housing. Waited 6 months for them. And then after the 6 months, she decided, you know what, I'm just going to cut my ties. I got a promotion at work. I can afford more. So let's see what's out there. And then we got her to close in like 45 days. And I went from texting her like every week to now nothing at all. And Kathleen was like one of the nicest people ever to talk to.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's the real world. I mean, so you always want to go back but sometimes it is pushing them out the nest and allowing them to go on. It really is in some ways.
Yeah, right. No, but, totally.
They're intimately involved with you. I mean, to as much as they need to be, but you invest yourself into them. You're emotional, let alone your time and energy away from your own family to be there, to be a little bit at their whim when they're available. You put everything aside for them. I mean, the job as far as real estate sales is not a 9-to-5 job. I mean, as I mean, you're always on, and but at the same time, you also, I watch in your social media, you do a great job in making sure that you're there with your son. And you're there as a family, and that really is important. And don't let that go.
Yeah, that's like the hardest part about the job, right? Is the juggling act, like trying to balance, finding the perfect balance for family, for clients, and then I also struggle when I have downtime, when it's like late at night like this, and I'm just putzing around on Xbox. I always feel guilty, like I should be doing more, and I still struggle. I remember saying that to you many moons ago, and I still struggle with that, where I feel like even when I'm relaxing, I'm like, man, I should be doing something right now. I should be doing something.
Well, feeling guilty for unnecessary, maybe, self-improvement, enjoying. I mean, sometimes it's okay to veg out, whatever that might be. If it is Xbox, now obviously it becomes an obsession. And
right.
That's
well, with anything, I have to put rules around stuff, or I just go hog wild. Like I don't do any video gaming until like 8 o'clock. Like that's Ashton's in bed, everybody's taken care of. I hardly get any text messages this late. I mean, it happens, but hardly. And it's nothing that I can't just go pause, answer the text message, pull up the MLS. Like that's nothing to me. But I have to put rules and structure something around it, or I'll just start playing video games at 11 o'clock.
But also, even there's rules and structure that you can put around to your clients. And, I'm here for you, but understand that, I'm not here at midnight.
Yeah.
And there are clients that would take you at midnight from that standpoint. I mean, years ago, I had somebody that would call my house phone, by the way, back when you did have your house phone number listed, not cell phone. Right. From that standpoint. So really date myself. He'd call at 5 a.m. I'm not up at 5 a.m. intentionally from that standpoint. And I said to him, I said, why do you call at 5 a.m. when you know that I'm still asleep? He said, I'm up. And, and this is when I start my day, and I want to start with a conversation with you. I don't know, I could feel honored, I guess, in some ways, but again, that single-minded, and I understand, during that process, being very much in tune, that's what they can think about. I mean,
yeah. Well, and it's interesting because it's a business where you have to be so fluid with personalities, right? Like that guy that wakes up at 5 a.m. I bet you he has a completely different like routine and different thought process than Sally and Jimmy, the first time home buyers. That like I just think it's interesting because you have to be your personality almost has to be like Play-Doh with people, right?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I mean,
because you have to like form to them and figure out what clicks with them and the best suits for them. It's such an interesting job because I can't think of many jobs that's like that.
Yeah. Well, we do have to be a chameleon when it comes to, adjusting to people. Now,
I love that.
Does that mean you have to give up your values and your integrity? Absolutely not. But sometimes you just have to find ways to relate and to speak to them so they can hear what you're trying to say, and so they understand that there's a benefit in what you're trying to say to share with them, whether it's market knowledge or how to negotiate or have them discover what they're trying to find. I mean, I know I probably have had conversations with you before, when you've asked me questions. Sometimes you're sitting down with the buyers, and let's just say there's two buyers, and let's just say they're in a relationship as far as whether it's married or not, and you're sitting down and asking them what they're looking for. They haven't even talked to each other yet. And so sometimes you're asking, and, I've had people, turn and go, you want that? And they don't talk. So, when you started off, you were, we're the therapist to some extent. We are, because we are learning about them, and we're trying to help them discover what is important to them so we can remind them through the journey of the process. So, and, we see people, as I would say, their absolute best and their absolute worst, because it's stressful. Even when it's exciting, even when it's happy, that's stress. And, if there's ways to relate to somebody that they can understand and speak a language, and, before we kind of started and I was kidding with you, as far as bleeping me from that standpoint, I don't swear very much, but bleeping me, ultimately, sometimes you have to, not that you have to, modify how you are, but sometimes you need to get into their mindset and their zone. And is that speaking in a very direct way versus somebody else that is going to be a little bit more sensitive? And you've got to get to the point, but you've got to take them and have them understand the different steps versus that one person that says, I want to know the bottom line and I want to know it now, and you got to tell it to me the way it is. Other people don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's a hard balance to find. It takes me until I show at least like a handful of houses in them where I can really get a good feel of them. Because at first base, it's really hard to be like, okay, this is the person that wants the facts and the numbers on stuff. They don't care about anything else. And then this is the person that wants to make sure, they're more concerned about the dining room size than they are about what the age of the mechanicals are. So it's like it's always this battle of like, all right, I got a new dance partner. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to dance with them, right? I got to figure out how I can be the best dance partner that I can be, right?
And have them accept you to be the dance partner. Sometimes you are, you got to be the lead in that, and because they're looking to you for that. But sometimes everyone takes that journey a little bit differently. So
yeah, it's interesting that you said that, is being the dance partner. And sometimes it doesn't work out, right? Like I'm sure you've had buyers come up to you and say, hey, I was working with Cory from Howard Hanna, and I didn't like the way that he was working. Can I come work for you? Can I work? Right. Can you be my agent instead?
Right. Yeah. Oh, and guess what? You're going to help people that want to be helped by you. Trust, relationship. And sometimes you're not the right fit for them. That's okay. It's okay. Obviously, you try to, for me, and I think probably for you, knowing what I know about you, you try to analyze it and say, okay, what could I have done differently? Where did I go off the rails a little bit for that they didn't see the value that I wanted to bring or the intent that I wanted to bring? But sometimes it's just not a good fit. Or you don't want to compromise on how you're doing your business from the standpoint of they want you to do something that just goes against your values.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of maybe it crosses the line into something unethical in my view, or certainly not appropriate, that's going to achieve what they're going to do. And if they don't feel that I can do that for them, then I'm not going to be the best fit for them. But on the flip side is I've been in a lot of houses. It's somebody's home, and it may not be my home. It may not be where I want to live, but I always remember that that's somebody else's home and it's somebody else's dream, and it's going to be a right fit for somebody. May not be for everybody. I mean, I was just recently, I was in a house and somebody, somebody said, what do you think? Could you live here? It's like, when I'm in that house, I'm sure like you, it's not about you. You're not even that. You might say, oh, gee, I like this compared to something else, but you're never there saying, oh my gosh, I want to be in this house, because you're in a different zone. I'm in the zone for the buyers that I'm with, not about what I want.
Yeah. I try to stay away from that question. When somebody asks me about that, I'm always like, well, I mean, I'm not the one that's going to pay the mortgage on the place, right? I mean, I have the line that, I actually stole this from Bob Matag from, I think he's from Fayetteville office.
Yep.
He said, think about the things that you can't change about the house, right? Like layout and price. Does the layout make sense to you guys? Because you guys can paint the living room, right? It doesn't matter what I think of the living room. The wallpapers, I don't like flower wallpaper, but that doesn't mean you guys can't like paint over it. How does the layout look?
Wait, Cory, in the video here, what is that background that you're in if you don't like floral wallpaper? It looks...
This is called the Great Wave. It is it's a series of, I think it was actually woodblock prints. I've had this, honestly, for a very long time. It's a better look than my gross, like, basement.
Okay.
So how do you, as an agent, how do you handle...
Video.
What did you say?
I think for anyone who's only listening to this, they need to go to the video on your YouTube channel and see what the background looks like.
That's right. I know I love this thing. It's like one of my favorite works of art, and I've had it for way too long, and it makes a prettier backdrop than I don't have a legit office yet. My office is like a dining room table.
Isn't that where a lot of people's offices are?
Yeah, especially right now, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of people had to kind of make their dining rooms into. I think that's why there's like this crazy spike in buyers. Well, I think due in part that these people want to move on and get a bigger house. I know we're one of them. I know we want to sell our house and get something bigger, just for that exact reason.
It's more to clean. It's more to take care of.
Going back to if you as an agent, if a client approaches you and says, hey, I was working with Cory from Howard Hanna. I didn't like working with him, but now I want to work with you. I'd much rather, I want you to take care of me. How do you handle that conversation? Because it's kind of a delicate conversation, right?
Oh, it can be. Well, first of all, the first thing I'd say is, well, I'm glad you got away from Cory because he's pretty bad.
That was called a soft pitch right there. I was just letting you.
No, Cory. So, I love to have a good laugh too from that standpoint and look at things just a little bit differently from time to time. So really, one of the things, that's a great question. And, we all have those things when we're faced with something. I want to say, okay, great. Let's take the time. Let's start over here. You've been recommended. I've been recommended to you, and you would like to sit. Let's sit down and let's start over. So here's how I work, and here's what are you looking for? And not necessarily get into what Cory did wrong or Cory this bad. It is, here's what's going on. Here's the things that I can share. What was the things, not about Cory, that you didn't have a good understanding of, or whatever the case may be, because things will come out. So I can certainly listen closely as possible and figure out, was it that communication, and were you only communicating with one side of the transaction, as in a spouse, and the other one was feeling left out? Because that happens. We get blamed as real estate professionals for a lot of things, even in their own relationships, as you know. Sometimes, especially when you're dealing with extended family members, maybe you're helping settle an estate, they will throw you under the bus because they're, again, emotional. They, more than anything else, they're always a power play. There's always, from when it comes to that. So I always want to sit down and start fresh. Here's what I do. Here's what I can provide for you. Here's the steps. Here's the process. Now tell me a little bit more about what's going on with you. Now, quite frankly, when I sit down with somebody, I'm always asking them the questions first before I'm even getting into dialogue, finding out what's important for them. What are they looking for? What are they trying to accomplish? Where do they see themselves? What have they looked at that they liked? What have they looked at that didn't like? I want people to describe all those things. I want to uncover all the things that they may not even thought about saying. And then maybe there's times that I might be a little bit of not a confrontation, but just to clarify. So you're trying to clarify when they say, you say you want a 4-bedroom house, but you've only been looking at 3 bedrooms. You pick out 3 bedrooms, and that's what Cory was showing you. Why is that? Mm-hmm. And again, tell me. I mean, I'm a big thing is why.
Yeah.
Why? Because if I can get them to really understand what they're saying, it's a lot easier for them to want to tell me what's going on with them. So.
Yeah, and sometimes these people don't even nobody's asked them why, right? So they don't even know, and they're like, no, you know what, I don't know why I keep looking at 3 bedrooms. Right. Like, I don't understand. I honestly don't even know, and sometimes it's surprising to me too when I have in the past, I would say since January, I've had 2 buyers come to me that have been in that situation where they were working with an agent, they didn't like them, and it's. I like your approach that you start over with them, where you meet them from ground zero. We start, here's my, do you do the whole, the buyer presentation meeting and all that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you have the same system? Just not to get off track, but do you have the same system for buyers and sellers?
Get off track. Isn't that what this is all the
yeah, I know. Right? This is welcome to the show, everybody, where we talk about real estate and then we talk about hippos in the next segment.
No, ultimately you could rename the podcast, Get Off Track. There, I've
yeah.
So no, in essence, if my goal is to be able to sit down with somebody and make sure they understand what they're going to be going through. So if I can manage what's going on for them by having that conversation up front and alerting them to here's some of the pitfalls, I want to do that. Absolutely. Yeah. Best thing I can ever do is sit down with somebody face to face. And yes, do I have a routine? Absolutely. Finding out what they're looking for, finding them to clarify some things. What's important to them? What's not important to them? And again, I ask it that way because sometimes people go, I don't know, So if you peel back that onion, from that standpoint, you will uncover more things. So sometimes some people, they know exactly what they want. Other people will only speak about the things that they don't want. Mm-hmm. And then you can figure that out. Then I'm going to get into certainly all the things that are important as far as additional disclosures that we haven't talked about in complete detail. Fair housing, how I work from an agency relationship, how I work with a contract. I'm in a buyer-broker agreement, and going over the contract to purchase because they're going to see it. I want you to see that today now before you told you have to have an offer in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and I'm shoving it at you at 9 o'clock at night and you've never seen it before. Let's stealing that. All those questions because that is today's world right now. Yeah, right. More than anything else.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take that from my buyer presentation because I like that giving the contract to them ahead of time because no matter what, when I meet with a buyer, I do have like a buyer presentation. It's like a basketball player when he's practicing his free throws. Like I'm still trying to chisel away and find like the perfect flow for it. But what I do is if a buyer's never written an offer, I do something like this where it's face-to-face. Now I use Google Meet, right? And I can type up the whole purchase offer right there in front of them. Connecting what we were talking about earlier, there is a buyer that I'm working with that their last agent never did that. And they just said, all right, what's the purchase price that you want to buy the house? Okay, what are you putting down? Okay, here's the contracts in your email, sign it. And then this is the first time home buyer. The buyer's never once seen a purchase contract at all. And now they have to click and sign. I don't know. It just makes me so nervous, especially because it's a very emotional thing, right? It's a big deal. And especially to that person,
Well, again, talking about managing the situation now, if they don't understand what the process is and what comes next, they're going to push back and be angry about it, or a little bit hostile because they're frightened by what comes next. They don't know what the process is. They don't know what's in that contract. They don't know what they're responsible for, what the seller's responsible for. You're setting yourself up for drama, problems yourself, let alone the consumer that you're trying to help. I mean, the number one issue in real estate is communication. It's like number one issue from that standpoint. So why don't you want to communicate? Yeah, and guess what? You have to tell them more than once the same information, because we can only absorb so much information at a time. But if you give them the big picture and then as you go along, you break it down. I will say during the pandemic, and certainly even prior to that, I really miss the interaction when they're in my car, because that's when we can have a lot of other dialogue about the house. So now if you're meeting somebody and you're meeting at this house and then they're driving separately because they've got GPS, so they now know where to go, and they're not dependent on you, you're no longer getting that conversation in the car about the house and maybe their lifestyle, a little bit more hearing that back and forth. And that itself can be really helpful for them in that process, let alone for me, knowing that I can narrow the focus for them. Because the better I know them, the better I can give them information and tell them why, they want to see this one house. I'm happy to show it to you, but here's my concern. You don't like this, this, and this, and that house has everything. There's an old phrase that Howard Brinton, which was a great trainer, which I know I've talked to you about once in the past, is, it's that, pop-up, a Pop-Tart, in that sense, just get up and go and rush out the door and show a property without any information, without any knowledge. So you may have met their needs for being available, but you didn't help them with the process. You didn't help them with everything else.
Right.
Which is not always great.
Do you, man, that bit in the car ride, I think is really important, because that's a two-sided coin, right? Because that's on the one side, you get to, like you said, you get to kind of chisel away at what they want. But at the same side, the other side of the coin is they get to know you more as an agent. And especially when social media wasn't around, I think that helps a lot of people, because they want to, know that they're going to like you overall, and B, that you're somebody that is providing value to them, right? So I could definitely see, because I started in 2018, and already by then, I think I maybe took like 2 or 3 clients out in my car, but during pre-COVID. So I didn't really get to hone a process, but it's interesting that you say that. I like that point of view, because you don't hear that. It's mostly like social media these days. People get a glimpse of you on social media. And that's kind of why I'm so transparent about my social media, is because a lot of people want to be invested in you, because they genuinely like you as a person, right?
Oh, sure. I mean, people want to do business with people that they like. I mean, from that standpoint, so even if the person that says, I don't care about that, they do. They do want to make sure that part of it is trust and relationship. So that trust does develop by knowing who you are and knowing a little bit about you. They don't want to know too much.
Yeah, right. They don't want to know too much.
Only because, ultimately it's not about you, it's about them. Yeah. So they do appreciate. I mean, there's so many times that over the years I've had people say, oh my gosh, Martin, you work so hard. You really need to take some time off after this transaction. It's like,
after you sell us your house.
After this is done, then you should take some time off, because, oh my gosh, you work really hard. I don't know how you do it sometimes, but not with us because it's about us right now.
Yeah, right. Like, take your time off, but don't go next weekend. We need you. We know you're gonna go on vacation this weekend, so we're gonna bombard you with showing requests and stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes,
it's the nature. It's the nature of the business.
It is. But you, as I said before, you do have to protect your time and make sure that you're doing that. But going back to the car, something that popped in my head as you were describing that. I'm sure you and Brittany have great conversations when you're in the car. Because you're equal, you're sitting across from each other, you're equal. There's not the distractions of the life going on at that moment in time. You can have great conversations. And as your son gets a little bit older and you need to have some conversations with them, you put them in the car because that's where they're trapped and that's where you have the conversation.
That's where they're trapped, Cory, and they can't escape the father talk.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But with that, I mean, that is, I'm sure if you can think back and maybe some different times in your own life, you can have some great conversations with whoever you might be in the car with, whether it's a deep conversation, whether it's a sincere conversation. You never know.
Yeah, 100%.
Or I'm sure for you probably were in trouble a lot and you had to be in the car. We're going for a car ride.
100%. Mom yelling at me for something stupid I did when I was younger or something. I don't know. So how has COVID affected your bit? It's affected everybody, and everybody usually says that they're now shifted more online. But how have you adapted with basically jumping over the hurdle that is COVID, the pandemic?
Fine. To me, you talked about Google Meet and whether it's Zoom or any other, video style app, you're now just pivoting and using that technology as a tool to accomplish the same thing. Seeing somebody, having the conversation, whether it's a phone or a smartphone, whether it's FaceTime or whether it's Zoom or whether it's Google Meet or any of those other things, you're now accomplishing the same things just in a different way. Yeah, you might have to work that much harder. And yeah, when we first were shut down last spring from March to April and into almost the end of May, where you couldn't even meet with somebody at the property and you were only showing properties via Zoom.
Only with your phone.
Only with your phone from that standpoint. During that time period, there's some people that I was working with that I had sold houses to before. So I felt a little bit more comfortable. But, from a agent's standpoint, oh my gosh, that's a little bit harder. But I also have to remember when they're going into a house, if I'm representing them as a buyer agent, so I'm representing them and I'm going into the house, and if they saw something that I know they wouldn't like, if I'm doing it on a video device, I'm going to say, well, you're not going to like that. Or, walking in, sometimes you can smell things in a house. Boy, the house really smells good here. Or, there's a lot of natural light. Things that you don't necessarily see on that little video box that they're looking in front of. Right. This room really has a lot of natural daylight. Yes, oh my gosh, it smells it smells like cats in here. But those are the things you would say or you would have conversations about if you were there in person. So you got to remember to have those exact same things online. And yes, it does take longer. I found certainly for doing it justice for video for a consumer that was not in the house and they're only on that video device is, you're going through again. And maybe that 15 minutes to half an hour is now 45 to an hour to go through that house because, it's harder for them to absorb and feel. So I'm always trying to tell the story as I go through the house. And I try to do that in a lot of things. I want to tell the story, whether it's from the front sidewalk to the front door, to the living room, to the dining room, to the kitchen. I want them to feel like they're walking through, whether it's still photos or whether it's that video. Because that's how they're going to be. Or sometimes, okay, here's the kitchen back door. This is probably the door you're going to be coming in all the time. Here's what the view looks like, as you're coming in every day at the end of the day. Because that's probably what they're going to do anyway. And if there's an objection that they're not going to like, I want them to know up front, right then and there, you're not going to like this. Or, you really, you really haven't liked this in the past, but I think it's better in this house because of X, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So,
Now, looking back on like the 2000, it was a 2009 housing market crash, right?
when you were 10,
What was that?
when you were 10.
Yeah, no, I was 2009. I graduated high school. I'm sorry, Martin. I'm not trying to age you. I want to pick your brain because I think this is an interesting
I started
correlation.
real estate when I was 10, Cory, so don't.
You're like, I was 10 then.
I was 10 then too, so that's okay. Hey, I'm young at heart. So
That's all that matters, though, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So, but like looking back on the housing market crash to COVID, do you think there are any similarities, or do you think they were totally opposite ends of the spectrum?
They're opposite in some aspects, but it's just, I don't care whether it's a seller's market, a buyer's market, a neutral market, a normal market. You're helping people. You're helping people with their housing. You're helping people get through a process that may feel complicated and overwhelming because they're not doing it all the time. So whether it's stress because as a seller in the 2009, there was a lot of houses for sale versus a stress that a buyer experiences now, whether pre-pandemic or now in pandemic, and there's not a lot and there's stress. It's stress helping them through that time period to get them to achieve what they're looking for. So, the story changes, but the plot line is the same. You're helping them through it. And sometimes, even when you're selling people because maybe they're going through a divorce or there has been a death or they need to downsize even though they don't want to, you're helping them get to their next stage in life. And that is part of the journey that we get to experience with them because we know that's putting them in a better situation, whatever that case may be, and getting on with their life.
Yeah. No, that is a great way to look at it because I think like there was I heard an agent talk that say that like this market is even crazier than when the housing market was in 2009. I have no idea what it was like being an agent at that time other than like you had mentioned, the houses sat on the market way longer than right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is not a normal market, Cory.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's so insane. Yeah. I feel bad because it's like constant heartbreak for these people. But I mean, what are you gonna do?
It's an experience that you're going to take with you because you're going to be in this career for a long time, and you're going to take that experience and you're going to be able to apply it in a lot of different ways. And if we come through something of a different kind of crisis where there may be a similar shortage of supply, you'll be able to pull that out of your history that you have and be able to use it and apply it at that point. So every market is really helpful. Every market gives another experience that we can share and use it to thrive on, because ultimately, as I said, we're always helping people. We just have to adjust to what the conditions are, but we're still helping people through that process.
Yeah, and adjusting is a big part of this job because there's so many. I mean, you look at real estate from, when you had started to now to the fact that the MLS used to be like in a book, right? Like there was no, you would only see a picture.
Wait a minute, Cory.
Wait.
Even before I was around, when there was actually a computer. Now it was, it was a dummy terminal, but it really wasn't a computer. But it wasn't, a 3-ring binder. That was long gone. But there were books. There were still books at that point.
People watching right now are now watching our friendship crumble. No,
Cory, not at all.
That's hilarious. But that's our job, right? Our whole career is like changing and morphing. And okay, so now we're moving from books to what's a computer? Now the internet, now Zillow, now there's it's always something that you're like, well,
Zillow being an advertisement vehicle, Zillow being a broker, different business models always have been challenges, but how do you learn and adapt? There was a great news article in the last 2 weeks that I shared with my office of an office meeting, because I needed to talk to them about some of the proposed changing for fair housing that was really going to have some impact. Everyone believes in fair housing and everyone wants to do that, but there was some different bills that were passed in the Senate but haven't been passed in the Assembly, and I wanted to share that with the agents within my company to be able to have an understanding before it occurred. And then there were some other things that I wanted to have some conversations about. And so it's a matter of maybe, hey, there's some change. And with change is moving forward. And change is all part of that journey. But my theme of my office meeting at that point was based upon, there was in Seattle almost 2 weeks ago now, a woman who was 90, woke up on Sunday morning and it had snowed overnight and there was a foot of snow. And on the foot of snow, she realized at 6 a.m. in the morning that she could not drive to get her vaccine at 9 o'clock. And so she realized that she couldn't drive. So she put on extra socks, laid herself up, got out her walking sticks, and walked in that snow 3 miles to the vaccine site.
Jeez.
And so the story was, I was in Washington Post, plus I also on some news outlets, and she felt bad because she was 5 minutes late. But with that, even further, the best part of the whole journey is that they said, did she at least get a ride home after that? And they said, oh no. And there was the daughter was telling, no, she walked home from that standpoint. And the best line was, her daughter said, my mother's a person who doesn't look for problems. She looks for solutions. And so the theme of my office meeting, as I was prepping everybody from that standpoint, I said, some people look for problems. Be the person who looks for the solutions. So there are challenges that we're faced with every day, whether it's how minute or how big it might be, or how much we might have to pivot, or how much we might need to change our focus. And, we had our day planned and something got thrown out of whack. You find the solution and you move forward. So
that's exactly COVID being a real estate agent right now.
Absolutely. So, when you were saying, as far as how did I do it, I quickly tried to learn. I'd been on Zoom before, but I hadn't conducted stuff on Zoom. So I'm always trying to find. So I kept myself, my days were spent learning and understanding and experiencing from other people. I love to learn things from other people. That's one reason why I love to be able to talk with you, is that, you may think, oh my gosh, Martin, I'm learning from you. No, it goes both ways, Cory. I can learn anything from a lot of people, and I want to always improve upon or apply it to me. So during pandemic, it's pivoting, it's changing, it's moving forward. And that's the good thing, is you're moving forward. You could be stuck. And, quite frankly, there was a lot of people within our society that were stuck during that time period.
Right.
And resisted. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And now maybe that was the best thing for them, because that's how they dealt with it. So I respect that, but at the same time, that's not me. And also I need to make sure that I'm going to be, not to sound too cliche, I need to be the leader for whether it's my own company, whether it's my family, whether it's the people that I'm around. I want to make sure that I'm setting the stage. I believe in so many things as far as integrity. I believe in being proactive. There's times that, I get beat up. Don't we all?
Everybody.
But I want to always be moving forward and figuring out how to improve and be better and help. I mean, I laugh, to begin with, Cory, when you started saying, I said, well, what do you want to talk about? You want to go to my childhood? I mean, from that standpoint, but, there's things that are instilled in us as young individuals and how we grow up, and those things do come out us as adults. doesn't mean that you can't change. If you had a childhood that was not as positive, doesn't mean you can't find that golden side of things. Yeah. But, you know, ultimately there are integrity. I mean, you know, there's so many times I shared with you, my parents have passed away, but, you know, my mother saying in my ear, you know, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything, you know, and, you know, there's times that, you know, that's just how I'm going to operate. Even if Cory is, you know, not the best agent for those people and they should have come to me, I'm not going to say that about Cory.
Right.
I might think that, but I'm not going to say that. So,
well, keeping the theme with pivoting. So you sold real estate for so many years, and then you became a broker manager. And you owned like a RE/MAX
company that I was with, you know, at that time. So, I mean, I started with an independent firm, and then in '92, September, I joined RE/MAX Realty Plus, and the broker was.
You said September of '92?
Yes.
I was one.
I know. Well. So, think of all the knowledge that you have grown since September of '92. So I joined RE/MAX Realty Plus in September of '92.
Wow. And you've been there since?
What? Hello? When
That's
you get
awesome.
to the best company, Cory, come on. So in 96, Jim Harriff was the owner. And, you know, he realized that, you know, he really just wanted to sell, and his passion was not managing or owning a firm. And at the time, you know, I was like, well, I love the RE/MAX system. I love the concept. I wanted to stay within RE/MAX. Should I buy it? And I looked at a lot of different scenarios, and I'm not going to get into everything, but, you know, I had to compete to buy the company because there was other people that were looking to buy it. So I had my broker's license, so I certainly had the ability to be the broker. That wasn't my initial passion, saying, oh, I want to be a broker. I love what I do in helping people every day. So October 1996, I purchased RE/MAX Realty Plus and became the owner. And you know, in February of 2015, I purchased RE/MAX Masters company that had started around the same time as Realty Plus, you know, because it's an independent franchise company. And then, you know, so I manage both, and I operate now under RE/MAX Masters as the common name for all three offices, even though RE/MAX Realty Plus still exists, you know, on piece of paper, but I operate as RE/MAX Masters. So to kind of answer your question though, you know, was that my passion, you know, from day one? Oh, I want to be an owner and broker. No. Was it a piece that I said, I want to, be in charge of my life? Absolutely. Have I grown through the process? And even though I'm still helping buyers and sellers, not as an intense way as I did at one time, I'm helping agents build their careers and help them thrive and help them learn. And I still stay current with the market by being out there, because that's still my passion. But, you know, I've learned to be able to have my passion. Hey, you know, in my view, as I've grown, Cory, and is, you know, everyone should do exactly the way I do it. But my growth has been, I respect that everyone operates differently in how they serve the needs of their buyers and sellers, so their clients. And let me help you do it effectively, efficiently, ethically, legally, and all the things that a broker can bring to the table. And those are the things. So that's my growth as a broker owner, to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's, you know, what's interesting is, I've said this before, but real estate's like a thumbprint, because it's the way you do business and the way I do business are different, and the way that somebody else does business is different for me. And it's the same with managers. Now, I've talked to a couple of managers outside of Howard Hanna Brokerage, and they all do, everybody does something different, which I find is so fascinating to me, because there's one, it seems like you are kind of like 50-50, like 50 managing, 50 selling. I would say time divided, unless I'm completely off by that.
Yeah, you know, that's a secret, Cory.
Okay, that's a secret, hush hush. But then there's some people, there's some managers that don't like to sell at all, because they say they don't want to compete with their agents. And then there's one that says, no, I love selling because it still keeps me out in the field, and I'm still hands-on. And that's what I think drew me to this business, was because there is no right way. I mean, there is a wrong way, right? You could be unethical and be a slimeball, right?
But there's no only one way.
Yes.
That's the key thing. It's not, it has to be only this way. So that manager that you talk with, and that's great that you're experiencing people in the industry outside of your own firm that you're with, to other industries. I mean, I always try to pay attention to a lot of other industries and businesses, because you can pick up a lot of value and awareness. So yes, the manager that says, I don't sell. Okay, great. So they find different ways to interact with their agents and within that, and that's okay. The manager that might say, I want to sell because I want to have a pulse on what's going on in the marketplace. I think that's great. I'm in that camp from that standpoint. You know, do I compete with my agents? Absolutely not. I'm gonna give most of my business away, quite frankly. You know, so but because I want them to succeed. You know, where you get excited about when you see a buyer get what they want, and you see a seller sell their home and they achieve that. I get that through watching agents and helping them and being there for that support. So those same tendencies that you will have to working with your buyers and sellers can translate to helping agents be successful.
Yeah, that's pretty much the goal, right? Is to help your buyers, sellers achieve their goals, right? And now you become a manager, you're just shifting your focus to the people that you employ, or the agents that are at your brokerage. It's still the same cup of tea, just a different flavor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But as you know, I mean, I'm always happy to share tidbits if that's what somebody's looking for, whether it's in my company or outside of the company, because the more we can do a better job as an industry, it helps all of us from that standpoint. Because I never want to have somebody say, "Oh my gosh, Cory was such an idiot of an agent," you know.
Right.
I don't want to hear that, you know, because that only hurts the industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I feel the same way when I hear somebody who had a bad like I had somebody call on my aunt's house about a listing, and the guy was just driving around finding for sale signs, and he was calling them to see if they were available. Wasn't pre-approved. He wasn't didn't know what he was looking for, didn't know what areas. And in the probably the 10-minute conversation I had with him, he said on 4 separate occasions, "I'm not working with another one of you agents." And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, man, no problem. And then when he said it the 4th time, I was like, hey, man, you brought it up a couple of times. It sounds like you had like a bad experience with him. And he was like, yeah, you know, I'm not going to get into it, but my last agent was kind of a grease ball, you know, and that sucks, because there's the saying that we're not very trusted, right? We're like trusted right above a used car salesman. And it makes me so sad, because there's so many great people that buy and sell real estate that are really knowledgeable and that are great examples of what a great agent should be, right?
Yeah. Oh, and you know, but it's sad when somebody paints a broad stroke. I had a bad experience with X, so therefore everybody's the same.
Right.
You know, that's not fair. You know, it's not fair at all. So
I mean, in the long run, I'd probably save myself.
I compliment you. You know, you said you've brought this up now 4th time. Now, you weren't looking for the dirt on him, on the agent, but you were just trying to find out why is he bringing it up, and why? Because obviously he's missing the boat on what he needs an agent for, to help guide him and give him good advice, and to tell him sometimes what he needs to hear.
Right, and that might not be what he wants to hear. And
you got it.
And that's what I like about that buyer conversation, right? Because it gives me a chance to say, hey, look, this is the current market, right? A house will get thrown on the market Thursday afternoon. They don't start showings till Friday. And then by Sunday, we have an offer. And sometimes that's being like generous on some houses, right? And if you don't have that, and then you are like showing the house like I just did earlier, if I didn't prep my buyers ahead of time that, hey, this is the market, and then I said to them, hey, we need to know an answer by tonight at 8:00. Like that's then that puts them in a world of hurt, like in a tough position. So having that conversation and being upfront about them, I think that only sets you up for success. And maybe that was missing with that guy. Maybe he just, I don't know. I didn't prod for the information. I felt like it was, especially when you bring it up 4 times in a conversation, I was like, all right, get it, dude. I'm not going to throw you in my CRM. I get it. I'm not going to blast you with emails. Okay. I won't do that. I promise.
Except anybody who's not in real estate. So CRM is, what does it stand for, Cory?
Customer Relationship Manager. So
Yes.
It's a nifty little database that I throw all my clients in, and it kind of helps me keep everything organized.
But the key thing is that it's a relationship.
Yes.
So how you're trying to have a relationship with that person, and that doesn't mean that it's always just selling that house. It's a relationship for long term. So
what do you think is like?
I just didn't know you yet. So
what'd you say?
That guy just didn't know you yet.
Right, exactly. Well, that's the unfortunate thing is some people, especially him, it sounds like he had just had one bad experience, and that's what set him off. Or maybe he was a crazy pants, and I saved myself. I don't know. The world will never know, right? Because he did not want to work with a real estate agent. I mean, and who knows? And it's funny because you say we deal with the emotions, but we also, I don't know what that dude's morning was like, right? Like maybe he was late for work. He couldn't fit in the appointment for the pediatrician and couldn't drop his kid, and then he was late for that, and then they hit him with a late fee or some crap. Like he probably just had
okay. All right, you just described your day there, Cory. Apparently.
No. I was just thinking of an example. It's just it's funny because you're just like dropped in their life, right? Like you're just like,
that's right. And I compliment you, from the standpoint of you tried to understand maybe there was something going on with him, that you only got the one end of it, and there was a lot more in that story, and you just heard one chapter and one paragraph.
Yeah. So. Right. Have you dabbled in rental stuff? Like, do you have your own rentals, or do you mostly just work with?
So I have had 2 families. During the time period, I said, look, I can make more money selling than managing. Yep. And so for me, when after the kids were born, Cory, it was like, I don't need to have any other headaches or be responsible for people, in a property from that standpoint. I can be responsible for people in a company, but I don't need to be responsible for the tenants from that standpoint.
Yeah. Because then you're on call 24. No, really like 48-14.
Yeah. But, I always say sometimes hey, everyone has a need. There are good reasons why somebody wants to be a tenant, and there are good reasons why somebody wants to be a landlord. So, I believe in home ownership, and people should, but it's not always for everybody at that point in somebody's life. So it's a landlord, tenant, home ownership. They all work in many ways. I say always the best example of a tenant. Friday night, 11:30, I get a phone call. What are you going to do about the hot water? I go, what's wrong with the hot water? Well, it hasn't been working since Tuesday. I go, and you're calling me on Friday night, 11:30? Yeah. I said, why did you call me before? It's like, hello. How would I be able to take care of it?
Yeah.
If I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, from a standpoint of, okay, so now that's going to be outside of my scope of my expertise and time. So I'm going to have a plumber on a Saturday now come in when something could have been taken care of on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. Right. They could have penciled it in and taken care of it.
So, whenever I hear somebody that says, I want to be a landlord, great. Are you prepared? And, sometimes that's that education. And there's a lot of people that say, absolutely no problem. They're prepared for that. And other people go, I hadn't thought about that. You mean they don't do their own stuff? I go, well, you've been a tenant, haven't you? What kind of relationship did you have with your landlord? And again, try to get them to understand, I never thought of that before. Doesn't make it wrong, but just
Yeah.
make sure you go with eyes wide open.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have just like, there's all this real estate bucket list. It's like, do a commercial deal, buy your own 2-family and manage it for a bit. And then it's like, do a flip, right? So I have all these things on my bucket list, and I haven't checked anything of those off quite yet, but I'm working on it.
But what is your time worth? So can you make more money by helping people buy and sell versus that flipping? Because that is a time intensive, because you're now going to be hands-on more than likely to make it most profitable. And I'm not saying that you can't have that experience, but is that the best thing for you, Cory? I don't know.
Right.
It also takes time away from you and your family. Is that the best thing for you in your life from that standpoint? It may not be. Again, everyone has different reasons why they do things and how they operate in their own home life and everything else. So, like I said, for me, it was a great thing. My first house was a 2-family. Best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
But sometimes you've got to change and you move on and you say, okay, I can live without that piece of it. I can help people who want to buy or sell, and I can do that. And I can, and it's, I say make more money, but I can spend my time more wisely.
Right. And I mentioned doing a commercial deal, and I know you've done commercial deals. Mm-hmm. What is the biggest difference between like a residential and a commercial deal? I feel like we could literally do a whole podcast on that alone.
I think
just at a surface level.
So, honestly, the biggest thing is, sometimes people think, commercial is that mysterious and that much more grand. You're still dealing with a person, even if it's not their money, they're doing it on behalf of a company, which still, they have a budget. They still have responsibility. It's still emotional.
Yeah.
Because you're still dealing with people, and how, whether it's an office building or land or, whatever the case may be, it's still emotional. And how does it make somebody feel from that standpoint? Honestly, I think there's much more emotion that goes into residential and thought than commercial, where yes, there is, as I certainly can say that it might be a little bit more factual in some ways, but it still does have that dialogue. Residential agents are typically much more involved in the transaction than a commercial agent, is what I thought.
Oh, interesting.
And there's good agents out there, so I'm not trying to say that in any way, but it's just a different type of personality many times.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I've heard, that commercial is less emotional, but it's still a big perk. They're still going to buy there. They're still a first time somebody's opened up a mom and pop dog salon. That's emotional buy for them. That's not
well, when you look at that, okay, so now you're talking about somebody's livelihood, somebody's passion.
Yeah.
I mean, for somebody to work with a dog salon, they have to love what they're doing, and they have taken that and they're putting all their life savings into creating this. And, that in itself is really scary for a lot of people. Whether it's buying that building or even leasing that space, they have their whole future is on the line at that point.
Right.
Because if they make a wrong move, it could destroy their business. Whether
it could stop the whole thing. Right. Right. Man, that's one day I'll do a commercial deal. I'm telling myself one day. Yeah. So last question I'll ask.
Oh, can I ask a question after this last question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, but you got your question first.
Oh, okay. All right, gotcha. So, do you have a daily routine or a weekly routine, and what does that look like?
I wish my routine were more consistent. How about that? So, but there are routines, whether they're the most effective at all or not. I try to start my day by triaging what I'm going to be doing, whether it's planning out the things that maybe came in from overnight, or realizing there was something that needed to be on the front burner versus the back burner, and then trying to lay things out. But even though, from a sales standpoint, let alone a broker owner and manager standpoint, I'm here to be flexible, to be with that. So yes, I have to carve out time to do certain things, whether it's an appointment to show somebody something, or an appointment to sit down with an agent and talk about their goals and their plans and where they're at and help them with a script or a dialogue. So there's those times that are precious, but I'm also here just to be. I was talking to my wife before earlier this evening, and I kind of made the comment that we are, certainly the time period. One of the downsides of the pandemic is that people are starved for human connection at different times.
Yeah.
And today, my day wasn't bad this afternoon as far as I was going to be working on some projects, but I had 3 agents that aren't necessarily always in the office. I mean, again, we're supposed to be working remotely as best as possible. I'm physically here in the one office this afternoon, and they're coming in and they're like, oh my gosh, so I can talk. They're getting that connection. So I had 3 hours just spent with 3 agents catching up on life, business, and things that were important to them, which to me is important for me. Did I have that planned the first thing this morning? Absolutely not. So triage, figure out. I try to personally get things scheduled from a conversation or a meeting first thing in the morning, because as the day goes on, things can go awry and you need to be more flexible. Personally, I try to make sure that my Monday, I try to schedule as little things as possible on Monday so I can be available from all the different things that have been stewing over the weekend. Because, from an agent standpoint, there's a lot of things that could have been moving parts, and maybe they need some help now on Monday. Now on Monday, it's the law offices and the banks saying, we need this, and we've got a deadline. So Monday, people get all revved up, and you've got to be ready to go for them more than anything else.
Yeah, right. It's interesting because when I talk to people, it's funny when I ask that question, because some people, it's kind of cool because I get to see in their mind a little bit. Like some people will be like, why, yes, I do have a routine, and I grab my cup of coffee, I write in my notebook for 10 minutes, and then I do meditation, or then I get my coffee, I do the MLS, and then I work out for an hour. And then everybody has a different routine that I like.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I would just do a plug here, Cory, from that standpoint. My day starts off typically, I have a great perk in the morning. My wife brings me a cup of coffee every morning. Really? Yes.
That's amazing.
I'm so lucky.
That's amazing. That's adorable. Every morning?
Every morning. Well, let me take that back. On Sundays, no, not necessarily. Yeah. I have to do that, so.
She's like, Sunday, get your own damn coffee, Martin.
You were close, but you need to be. No. So that is, I'm very lucky, very, very lucky. But so my routine is, it may not be as rigid as some people that's going to say I'm going to take care of myself, but I am taking care of myself because I'm trying to get myself centered for the day to get forward. I would love to do more.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. There's not enough time in the day to do everything you want to do. Yeah. That's the tough part. Yeah. So what Cory, question do you have for me?
Oh, I've got a few questions here.
Oh, okay. All right.
What's the best thing about real estate?
Oh, wow. All right. So here's a good answer. I like connecting with old friends. It gives me a reason to. So I'm listing a house next week that is from a friend of mine I was friends with in 5th grade, and then he moved away, and him and I were we were buds. And then he moved to he went to a different school district, and we reconnected on the Facebook like a couple of years ago. And then randomly he just emailed me like last week and said that him and his wife are thinking about selling their house. So I get a great excuse to connect with people I would not have talked to in a very long time. Yeah. And 2, I left retail because it was not fulfilling for me. Like And this job gives me a chance to do something fulfilling for myself, but also for another person without being completely self-centered. But
No.
I do like it because I get a good feeling out of what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So what's the biggest challenge that you have?
Oh, that's good. These are good questions, Martin. You came prepared, dude.
I'm not. I'm just. I'm now curious. So
I think the surface level, the biggest hurdle, right? Is what'd you say?
what's the biggest challenge that you have?
Biggest,
Now
yeah, the biggest
that
challenge. I
could
mean,
be life, business. So I can be a little flexible.
yeah, no, I would say obviously service level, not enough houses to satisfy all the buyer needs for stuff. I think that goes without being said. But also juggling my life, like juggling all the balls in the air, like the family, the teaching, the real estate. So it's like Ashton, it's like all these different balls that I'm trying to keep in the air. And I heard a quote a couple weeks ago that I really liked, that it was, in life you're constantly juggling balls, but your job is to remember which ones are made of glass and which ones are made of stone in case you drop them, right? If I drop real estate and I leave my phone at home and take a family day, is that really going to hurt my business? Probably not, right? It's a stone ball. I can pick that ball up and answer those text messages when I get back. But if I drop the family one, that's going to be a little bit harder to put that back together. I think that's the hardest thing. And because I went from a job that says you open today, you're off tomorrow, you close when you come back, and then you open the day after that. I went from a job that I know exactly what I'm doing every single day, and I have the set schedule, to a job where I'm like, all right, what did I do that's real estate today? Did I use my time effectively? How could I have done something better? All right, I got to spend time with Brittany. I got to make sure everything's good at home. I got to make sure, that is probably the biggest hurdle for me. Even doing this since 2018 is probably the biggest challenge for me, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough. I mean, how do you do it for you being in it for so long? Like, would you say you're really good at it, or do you think that's just something that you have to like continuously focus on every day?
It's something that you always have to stay focused on, because it's easy to get off the rails at different times. It's easier as life goes on, because then you get to be a little bit more confident, maybe is my way to look at it, or certainly not that you don't care, but you can accept things, where they may go. I love your analogy as far as the glass balls versus the stone ones. Quite frankly,
I love that. It's my favorite quote. I love it. I completely paraphrased it, and I probably butchered it, but that's pretty much the gist of it.
There's so many things that come in, and how it gets rearranged in our own, whether it's our own heart or our own mind, and how we can relate to it. I think it came out beautiful from that standpoint. So
there we go.
Question. I mean, here's the thing. I can be a nice guy, Cory. I know, from time
obviously
to time.
That's why I like you, Martin.
Yeah, but there's, you can get your feelings hurt, because people can reject you, or people can be mean.
Dude,
and
that's another one.
And that sometimes is hard. And maybe they're lashing out, and you can look at it objectively, but still it does hurt from that standpoint at different times.
Yep.
I've had dealing with people, and they get that emotional. They lash out. As we age, as we get more experiences, as we get all those different things, it can still hurt, but probably gets easier, because you can say, okay, I'm at peace with myself from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes that real jab and that real heartache for that to happen. But I envy you, because you are posting the pictures of your life, and with your son, and that you're doing those things, and those are moments that you will never get back. So I compliment you for that. So my last question is, so what's your proudest moment, Cory?
Jesus. Proudest moment
in life.
In life?
Your proudest moment. So that can be family, could be real estate, it could be what you got in trouble for when you were 5 years old. I don't really care.
Yeah, right. So I'll break it into two. Like family, obviously, I think the proudest moment is Ashen being born. That was a really powerful experience that still today affects the way I think in a lot of ways. And I mean, and real estate, man, my proudest moment. I don't know. I had a really good January. I had the most sales I've ever put out in January. I felt really good about that. But proudest moment. I mean, Ashton obviously takes the cake on that one, right? I mean, that's number one slot. But in real estate, I don't know. Part of me says I care about being a top producer, but the other part of me doesn't. I'm more concerned about being a good father, but there's still a good part of me. I'm just competitive in nature, and that's another thing I'm trying to. Right, you said what's the toughest thing to get over in this business, and that's trying to be as stoic as possible. Right, try to take the emotion out of everything, and then when you see somebody who like you guys started at the same time and they're like constantly hitting numbers, you're like, damn it, what's wrong with me? Like trying to take that part out of it can be tough too. But it's the game, dude. That's how it is, right?
Oh, don't say it's the game. That's the game. Challenge.
Yeah, the game makes it sound like slimy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the business.
I would say that's one of my pet peeves when I do hear people say, the real estate game. I'm like, it's not a game. You're not playing with somebody. You're helping somebody. Or whether it's a deal. That's always a pet peeve of mine. A deal. That sounds very one-sided. It's a transaction. You're helping somebody with a process more than anything else. So those are my pet peeves. So you can do a whole show on pet peeves. That I have a whole sack full of those.
Dude, this was a great pod. I'm glad we did this. This is a lot of fun. Every time I talk to you, I feel like A, I learned stuff, and two, I like you that much more.
Well, thank you. I enjoy having the conversation with you. I don't know why anybody wants to hear this, though. I mean, me.
Well, because I think people can learn, even if they're not in real estate. I think they can learn something from it. And Martin, I like you because you're a genuine person. So and other people are going to see that, and you're passionate about what you've been doing since 1985. I mean, listen, I'm going to say it's a long time without hurting your feelings, but that's an extraordinary amount of time that I think is a great example of why you are such a great agent, right? Like those agents that have been around for a while, those are the ones that I know are really genuine, and they mean what they say when they say, "Oh, I just love helping people." Like I think that's usually what people say when they first get in the business.
No, usually they say, "I love looking at houses."
Yeah, I love looking at houses. I love HGTV. You are in for a surprise.
It has nothing to do with houses. It has everything to do about people.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Martin, I appreciate you. Thanks for doing this. And I can't wait to put this out into the internet. This is going to be great.
Cory, thank you for the opportunity. You're a good man.